What is going on, everybody? It's Conley here with the Science Nights. And hey, check this out. All three Science Nights are assembled this week. We have Dr. Sean Graham, Dr. Thomas Schiller, and all the way from India, Dr. Anirban Bhattacharjee. What's going on, Anirban? How's it going over there?
No, nothing much. We're still under lockdown. We are still inside our houses. Everybody, entire, like 1.3 billion people are in their houses, sitting tightly, closely packed together. So, yeah.
Sounds like you're having a ton of fun out there.
Yes.
Do you at least have an Xbox or something?
No, it's been interesting. It's been very interesting. Yeah.
Wow, cool. Well, I'm sorry. We wish you were here, man, but we're really happy to be able to get a hold of you through the wonders of technology.
It's amazing.
It's just amazing.
And this is actually the first time hearing this. The entire 1.3 billion population of India is on lockdown?
Yeah, except people like in the cops, the medical people, the fire service, fire department,
Wow.
and I think the people who are delivering the grocery to the grocery stores, and the grocery stores are open, and the medical shops are open.
Oh, so you can still get groceries.
Yeah, and they're not open throughout the day. They're open only in the mornings, I believe. So yeah, I mean, so those are the essential services are being provided. All trains are, every type of public transport is shut down. So there are no flights, there are no trains, there are no buses, there is nothing. So yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's good because I remember I was supposed to pick you up 2 days ago, and I guess you don't need me to pick you up anymore.
Yes, I'm still waiting at the gas station back in India. I mean,
Unless you can drive to Calcutta and
Anirban, you got to go old school with it, man. Find an old tire and a stick and like run down the road pushing the tire with the
well,
stick.
then
It's gonna
then I can.
so much
I
fun.
mean, I can do it both ways. I will either reach Pacific Ocean or I'll reach Atlantic Ocean. Now, what do I do after that? Build a raft?
Yeah, you got to build a raft. Anyway, we're here today with the Science Nights, and they're going to be talking about home experiments. Everybody's kind of on lockdown here as well, Dr. Anirban. So everybody's kind of going stir crazy, if you will, trying to come up with creative ideas on how to educate their children, because children are home too, and it's very difficult to teach them what they really need to know in a way that'll get them engaged.
yeah.
Right?
And I'm sure there are a lot of frustrated parents out there who are trying to figure out what exactly to do. I mean, we have enough as it is as college professors trying to figure out what to do with our students teaching remotely. But man, I wouldn't want to be a parent to like a middle school kid right now. So we're going to try and help you guys out there if you want some good suggestions for science projects you can do at home. We're going to give you a few. Sean's going to have one on biology. I'll do one on geology. And Anirban will have one for physics and or astronomy. So hopefully this is helpful to folks out there. We want to keep things positive. There's been a lot of gloom and doom. Let's work through it and let's learn some science.
All right, let's do it. Dr. Sean Graham, why don't you take it away? You said you had some kind of a recipe to share with us today?
I got a recipe. And this is a science experiment you can do in your home. And it's as simple as following a pretty simple recipe. And it's really amazing what you can do. It's remarkable what you can do with just a few household goods. You might actually have to run to the grocery store, but actually you probably won't have to if you have all this stuff at your house. What I'm going to instruct you on how to do and give you exactly all the things you need for this recipe is to extract DNA.
Wow.
You can extract DNA from just about anything that has ever been alive. I'm going to suggest you use strawberries because it works really well. And you can extract DNA from yourself. Yeah. And you can actually, after you do it, you'll see it. You'll see it floating in this little specimen. And you can then take that little bit of DNA of yourself and stick it in a little vial if you have one. It's a really cool experiment, and this is one that I really love to. You can do it with kids. I do it for my genetics class. I teach a genetics class in the middle of the semester. We do this real fun DNA extraction activity, and everyone gets to see DNA of a strawberry and DNA of themselves. And then that's the midway, kind of benchmark through the semester. And it takes about an hour and a half. That's it.
Wow.
At most. I mean, you could do it faster if you want to, but what I'm going to do is going to kind of talk you through the steps and also tell you what's going on at the same time. What all the steps, why the steps are required, and what's going on.
Do you need any like very expensive equipment?
You don't.
Oh, cool.
The most expensive thing you need is a blender. A blender would be good. You could probably get away with like a mortar and pestle if you don't have a blender. But
Okay.
probably everybody's got a blender.
Yeah.
You need a strainer. You need some water. Sure, you got that. You need a little alcohol. And I'm going to say don't
Like what percentage?
use like rubbing alcohol.
Okay.
50, 70%, whatever you got.
All right.
But don't use, you like tequila. Save that. You're going to need
Right.
it. You're going to need that.
The parents
But
will.
if that's all you got and you want to waste it on this experiment, knock yourself out. It'll probably still work. And then you need some sort of a specimen. And strawberries work best. But you can use just about anything that has DNA, and everything that's ever been alive, right, has DNA. And so strawberries work really well. I'll tell you why. Strawberries have multiple sets of chromosomes. Plants are weird. Plants can get away with having 8 sets of chromosomes. And so strawberries are octoploids. They have 8 sets of chromosomes. So that means that in a strawberry, there's a ton of DNA because there's tons of chromosomes. And that's why they work really well. But you can use just about anything. If you got strawberries, use strawberries. And so what we're going to do, you're going to take those strawberries, you're going to stick them in the blender, and you're going to, macerate them. You're going to blend them up to kind of tear apart the individual cells and get them in a kind of a liquid form. And we're going to do other stuff to it, and we'll go step by step. You guys want to get started?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
I thought
Take notes, parents.
yeah, take notes. And I really thought we should have brought a blender in here and actually done this with the sound. So maybe we could just pretend like it and it'd be super dorky. But
Or we can put. We
I
can
have a
post all
blender.
these
I have a blender
instructions.
sound effect. I can put on.
Oh, do
could you do
Yeah.
that? So you
We shouldn't tell the listeners.
you
We'll
work
keep it
on
real.
hilarious sound effects, and I'll just go through. So the first step 1 is blender insanity. What you're going to take is a half a cup of strawberries or anything alive. Preferably not something that's still alive. Don't do that. Don't find a frog or, something that was alive, right? A fruit, but strawberries work best. A half a cup of strawberries, 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Now, we want kind of salty conditions so that it's kind of isotonic, so that the concentration of salt in and outside the cell is about the same to where the contents of the cell are going to kind of pop out. That's what we want.
Okay.
So a little bit of salt. And you can this isn't as important as following grandma's recipe. Let me tell you, because I've done this a million different ways, and usually when I do it in front of my students, I just throw in some salt, a pinch. So a
We're
pinch
like
of salt.
one step away from a margarita here. So.
Yeah, we'll get close, and
Aaron.
then you'll see it's going to take a real quick nosedive where you will not want to consume this. So you'll find out soon. Okay, so for every half cup of strawberries, you'll want a cup of water, and it's okay to use tap water. And that's the first step. So you put all that there in your blender and you blend it up. Okay, couple of minutes.
you
Couple of
just
minutes.
put a
yeah,
little-
because there's be these cells in the strawberries that you want to. There we go. Yeah, get it up. 2 minutes of that. We don't want 2 minutes of the show that we're doing that, but there you go. That we're doing it here in the studio. We got it. Okay, step 2, soapy strawberries.
Wait,
Soapy.
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 So you're making water wetter in order to
So this is the part where you're not going to want to drink it anymore.
right.
Because the next step is you're going to pour that solution where you blended it all together to kind of break open the cells. You're going to pour that through a strainer to get like the really big kind of chunks out, right? All the kind of green stuff, all the stems of the strawberry, things like that. It's going to be like a slurry that comes through that strainer. And you pour that into another cup. It's going to go through that cup. And you're going to end up with maybe a little half cup of that slurry. You might have to use your fingers to kind of separate that stuff to where it goes through the strainer. If big chunks do go through into the other cup, it's no big deal.
Okay.
And then you're going to add 2 tablespoons of liquid detergent.
Like Tide or
Any
Bounty
kind of
or
soap, any kind
Arm
of
&
soap
Hammer.
that you got laying around. Yeah, the kind of bathroom soap. Or you guys are hoarding this stuff, so I'm sure you have some. Liquid detergent, hand washing soap.
Oh, okay.
Not hand sanitizer. It's got to be soap.
But hand
What
soap,
about dish
like
soap?
palm olive.
Dish soap.
Dish soap,
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
Whatever you use to wash your dishes with in the sink.
Right.
What you want to do that for is because the outside of a cell is made up of a lipid membrane. And if you want to cut lipids or fats, if you want to cut lipids, you got to use soap, right? And so that's what that step is for. If you use this lipid, if you use the detergent, it'll break open the cell membrane, the outside of the cell, and it'll let the contents out. Now you'll pour that soap in there, let it mix, and just barely swirl it with like a spoon or your finger. You can just use your finger. Don't go crazy and shake it up and try to really scrub that stuff in there. Just kind of stir it a little bit.
Okay.
And then let it sit for about 5 or 10 minutes. You don't want to stir it so much that you get tons of bubbles and it just starts emerging with bubbles everywhere. But the reason why you use that detergent is you want to bust open the outside of a cell, which is made of lipids. The lipids of a cell, the outside membrane, keep the compartment inside the cell separate from the outside.
Right.
If you have water on either side, it won't mix because it's got a lipid barrier.
Yeah, lipid meaning fatty.
Fatty. Yeah, very
Just like
good.
it breaks down the fat on your dishes.
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
you-
and the soap breaks down the fat, so it'll pop open the cells.
Right.
Then you get to step 3, enzyme power.
Enzymes.
You need some enzymes. The reason why you need enzymes is because the DNA in your chromosomes and a strawberry's chromosomes is actually wrapped around a bunch of proteins. There's these proteins that hang on to the DNA and kind of keep it organized. They're called histones. And so chromosomes are tightly organized, DNA wrapped around these proteins that you don't really need for this experiment. You just want the DNA. So if you use a certain enzyme, it'll break down those proteins so that you're just left with DNA and nothing else. And guess what enzyme you want to use? Meat tenderizer. And just use a pinch, just a little pinch, a meat tenderizer, and it'll pop open. And I'll tell you, folks, if you
Like
don't,
you're talking that tenderizer that comes in little blocks, like the little square blocks.
that's like
bouillon.
Yeah, it's beef bouillon.
Yeah,
so
the
beef's
tenderizer
not-
comes in a little like McCormick's.
Oh,
yeah,
like a
it's
little-
like a white
okay.
powder.
Okay.
And this is a step that you could probably get away with not using. It'll probably work without the meat tenderizer, but it'll be really good if you can add a little meat tenderizer. Because all that is, that enzyme in meat tenderizer, it kind of breaks down protein, and that's what loosens up the meat
Oh, I
and makes
see.
it tender.
Right.
And so if you use a little of that, it'll break apart those histones that are wrapped around the DNA, and then you'll just be with DNA. And the last step, step 4, is the most important part. It's where the alcohol comes in.
Okay.
It's where you get phase separation. You get alcohol separation. So at this step, you've got this soapy crap that you don't want to drink, and there's enzymes in there. You don't want that either. And so the DNA is somewhere in there, and you got to somehow figure out a way to get it to separate out from the rest of the goop that's in there. And all you got to do is pour a little bit of alcohol into the cup that the rest of that slurry is in. And you pour about the same volume of alcohol that is already there, right? So if you got a half a cup of the slurry, add a half a cup of alcohol. And pour it in there like you've seen bartenders do, where they,
Right.
along the side, to where it doesn't just mix it all like crazy. Don't just pour
Right.
it right in.
Kinda
but
sits on top
Yeah,
a
you want it
little
to
bit.
kind of sit on top. And the alcohol is going to sit on top of the rest of the slurry.
Right.
Because it's slightly different in polarity than the rest of the solution. And because of that phase separation you're going to get, DNA is actually a polar molecule, so it's going to want to kind of pull
Go up
into
into
the
it.
alcohol layer.
Right.
And that's when you're going to see the magic. And if you use strawberries, almost immediately you're going to see this cloudy, whitish stuff that looks like a loogie. And you can go in there with like a pencil and play with it and peel it out. And that is DNA. It's DNA strands.
Wow.
It's DNA, and it's a lot. You're going to see it's got like a big, thick layer of this stuff. And that's the DNA from the strawberries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
What? And you said it's white, and the rest of the goop is still like
The rest
pink?
of the goop is still kind of pink, and it's going to be sitting at the bottom.
Right.
And the stuff is going to be this cloudy mixture of whitish looking goop that looks like a loogie, and that's DNA. It's not a loogie, and it's
Wow.
sticky like a loogie. It'll kind of stick to a pencil, and you can kind of play with it, and you can swirl it around and collect it. and it's
Interesting.
there.
Cool.
Now, you can also get DNA from yourself, and it's actually a simpler process. It's got similar steps. You guys want to hear how to do this?
Sure.
This is something. Do you have a swishing sound effect? We're gonna need
Yeah.
it. Okay, I'll have you work on that. So for this,
Is that good?
yeah, you need about a half a cup of water. You need some more cups. And by the way, these cups that I'm describing here, if you have little clear plastic cups, that's gonna be the best way to do this, because you can then see through the cup. Now, if you have like glasses, like small like tumblers, that would probably work too. and then you could just wash them afterwards. But if you have little clear plastic cups, that's what I use for these experiments.
Can you put food dye in the alcohol?
Yes. There's often
with-
a dye step where you can just put a little droplet of dye in there, and that'll help to see the phase separation real well. But you don't necessarily need that. So you need some of these cups, more water. You're going to use detergent again. You're going to need salt again. And you're going to need alcohol again for this. And food coloring would work real well to see the difference. And so all you got to do is you take a bunch of, in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to extract DNA from your cheek cells. And so you're going to swish some water, and it's going to be super salty water, because the salty water, when you swish that, is going to kind of rupture those cells. It's going to make those cells so different in their salt concentration that they're going to pop right open, just like that.
Is that your? That's a great swishing sound effect.
And, hey, when we swish,
Here
man.
we go.
We don't
go
swash.
full on. It sounds like we're swishing a basketball.
Yeah.
So you put a tablespoon of salt in about a half a cup of water, and then you swish that. You gargle that water and swish it for a full minute. And this is hard to do. It's always fun to see my students doing this, because they start to giggle. And I've actually never had one do one of either of two things. I've never had a student spit it, like go
Yeah,
all
like
over
a
the
spit
table.
take, yeah.
And I've never had one accidentally swallow the whole thing either. So that's it. Despite having like 30 college students in the room, they managed to pull this off. Gargle that salt water for a minute, spit it back into a cup, and then add soap, a drop of liquid detergent, mix it up, same sort of thing. This step, it's so simple, and because you're using such a high concentration of salt, you don't really need the enzymes to separate the DNA.
Right.
And then you add alcohol, again, about the same amount of volume as you spit into the cup. Maybe drop a little bit of food coloring in there to see the phase separation. Now, for this experiment, it really helps to use plenty of salt and really gargle and swish really vigorously, because you got to get those cells in your cheek to kind of rupture and to pop out. And at the end of this, you wait about 2 minutes with the soapy water after you've spit it in there, and then get phase separation with the alcohol again, and wait another 2.5 minutes, and you'll see usually just a little bitty kind of peninsula of weird looking stuff that just kind of
What
drags
color?
in. It's the same. It looks
It's white?
exactly like, so if you do the strawberry experiment first, it looks exactly like strawberry DNA,
Right.
because DNA is DNA.
Right.
It's
Right.
just a
DNA is
It's
all-
just a different. The letters are different in a strawberry. Other than that, it's the same stuff. It's exactly the same. So it looks exactly the same. It's this clear little whitish little kind of arc of stringy looking stuff that kind of goes up into the alcohol, and that's your DNA. I'm certain there's labs in this country that could take that DNA that's in your cheek cells, and if you were to store that in ethanol and alcohol and thaw it out 200 years from now, they could clone you with that.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
All
yeah.
the information that is needed to make you is in every single one of your cheek cells,
Wow.
That's cool.
That is great.
and you'll be able to see that.
Throw it in your freezer.
grow
Just
grow
in
another
case.
one of yourself in your okay.
Just in
Take
case.
about 200 years. But okay, so that sounds awesome.
It's
Now-
pretty great, and it's. I mean, the students it blows their mind. It's really cool to see your own DNA. It really is.
Well, this
What-
sounds like something that a elementary school kid, a middle school kid, high school
I think
kid
every kind of every level of student can do this, and
Okay.
and every level of student should see this. It's really cool.
So parents are definitely going to need to research this in order to like properly teach it to their kids. What's like some online resources that you'd recommend for the parents to kind of look up? I mean, of course they could Google it, right? But do you have any particular like websites
what
I
that
think
you
we'll
would?
post some stuff on our
We
Facebook.
could
Okay.
post
some
stuff, and then
links.
what I would do for a parent would be just to. There's a lot of really great stuff on YouTube where like educators who are like us, who are just kind of like to do like videos and stuff like that. They do a great job of explaining this kind of stuff with diagrams and cartoons and that sort of thing. So put like DNA in a YouTube video, in a YouTube search, just go, how to extract your own DNA or something like that, or what is DNA or something like that.
Oh,
And you'll get great kind of good, entertaining, like 5-minute
Crash
videos.
Course Science or
Yeah,
something.
those things are really good. And I think that to really understand like what DNA is, we didn't really get into that much. We've talked about it on our shows before.
Sure.
But, the steps involved and why you would use those steps, we kind of went into it. But YouTube is a great source. It's about the only thing YouTube is good for.
Okay, great. Right.
I
Well-
had a quick question.
And cat
So
videos.
We can,
Okay, we're about to go to break, Anirban,
so
but
quick question. So can we use it to do it for like dogs, cats, and take a cheek swab from them and see their DNA also, right? You could replicate this one, but
If you got in a big enough sample, you would be able to do it. Yeah, but it'd be harder because you would be hard to force a dog to gargle salt water for a minute.
I can't even get my dog to open its mouth after it is chewing on something I don't know what it is. That mystery something. So, all right. Well, you know what? After the break, we're going to go to Thomas Schiller, going to have some tips and tricks on at-home experiments. Keep it right here, everybody.
All right, hello everyone. This is Science Nights. Tom Schiller here. The last segment, we had Dr. Sean Graham talking about a cool biology experiment or project that you can do at home with your kids. We recognize that parents are out there probably pretty frustrated right now trying to find fun projects for their kids since everyone is isolated at home and there's no school going on. So I've got a project for you that's a little more geology related. And believe it or not, as skeptical as I am, or as I don't typically like to use technology that much, this one is really heavily technology based, and it involves a free software that you can download. You might even have it on your home computer, Google Earth. So in geology, Google Earth is really a useful tool, especially for educating students, because one, it's free, and two, it has some really great built-in resources. Now, for the project that I'm going to suggest to parents out there, you have to download a file. It's a KMZ file, which is the format of file that's used for Google Earth. But it's really easy to find. You just go to Google and you type in dynamicearth.kmz. And the first link that pops up should be the right one. And you just download it. Okay. So you download this KMZ file. Of course, you have to download Google Earth. What's that called?
K like cat. K like kite, not cat.
Not
I
cat.
don't spell cat that way.
K like Kmart.
K like Kmart.
M like mouse.
Mouse. Z
Okay.
like
Z
Zorro.
like Zulu.
And if you can't figure out how to download it, get your kids to do it for you.
Yeah, and I should remind everyone, we're gonna post all this stuff on our Facebook page. So if you need to take your time and go through the process, we'll have all this stuff posted on Facebook. So this is kind of a quick explanation to it. So of course you download Google Earth first, which can be found through Google. Just about every system can accommodate Google Earth. It's not a really heavy software to use on your computer. You can even get it for your devices, but I highly recommend using it on your desktop or your laptop computer. So you download Google Earth, and you download this KMZ file, Dynamic Earth. You open up Google Earth, and you'll see at the very top left, there will be a File tab. Click on that. Go down to Open, and it's just simple as finding that KMZ file in your Downloads folder or wherever you downloaded it to, opening it up, and Google Earth will bring up this file. Now, what's included or embedded in this file are layer files, which any sort of GPS or GIS, Global Information System, will use layer files, and Google Earth is no different. They're just in the KMZ format. So this file has tons of geological information in it, and this is why it's so cool. Now, the project I'm kind of going to give you is just one of many projects that you can do playing with this KMZ file. So what you'll see when you bring up this file, you'll have it as a layer up in the top left of your Google Earth screen, and you can open up all of these separate little layers. Now, to see the layers, you simply click on the boxes next to them, and it's really worth your time to kind of play around with them and see everything it has to offer. We'll kind of go over some specifics here, but this Dynamic Earth file has layers that can give you all earthquakes that happened within the last 20 or 30 years, all active and dormant volcanoes. It can give you plate boundaries. We've talked about tectonic plates before, and we'll talk a little bit about them here shortly. It can give you the age of the oceanic crust. It shows, as I said, plate boundaries. So it's an incredibly useful file when trying to teach your little student Google. I shouldn't say little. There's probably some high school kids out there. This is really can be used for any ages. But okay, so you have your KMZ file, your dynamic earth file. Now, the first thing to kind of look at, and this is specific to this project, would be to click on the boxes next to earthquakes and volcanoes. Okay. Now, the first observation that you and your kids should make is the position of earthquakes and volcanoes. When you click on these boxes, you'll see earthquakes shown as little icons, as squares with red X's in them. Those are the earthquakes. Volcanoes, they'll be little volcano symbols. Now, the point of this is for you and your student to recognize that earthquakes and volcanoes occur in the same places for the most part.
They're not just scattered randomly all over the
No,
globe.
in some places they are, but you'll find that they're really clustered for the most part. Now, folks out there are probably familiar with the Ring of Fire, not the Johnny Cash song, but the actual Pacific Ring of Fire. And you'll be able to see this using this dynamic earth file. So if you zoom out, you can look at the globe in 3 dimensions, which is really cool. It's
Wow,
not flat,
cool.
by the way.
Right. Contrary to popular
first
belief.
observation.
That's the first thing you need to observe. Be sure your students know that the Earth isn't flat. But you can find the Pacific Ring of Fire just by clicking on the volcano and earthquake icon. And you see that you have a cluster of volcanoes and earthquakes in this one region. And basically, what the Pacific Ring of Fire is the margin of the Pacific tectonic plate. And that plate is interacting with other smaller plates. It's sinking beneath other plates. And above that are volcanoes and earthquakes. Basically a plate boundary is a big fault where you have seismic energy that's generated. I should mention, this will probably be aired maybe a week or so after this happened, but we had an earthquake here in West Texas.
We did.
Just north of here, north of Alpine. We had a
Minton,
5.0 moment magnitude
Conley,
earthquake.
you felt that, did you?
Yeah, I felt it. And I wasn't the only one. I was working at the time, and it was just so subtle, though. I mean, it was barely anything. But other people in town had called in and said, "Hey,
what was
I think,
that?"
yeah, what is going on?" So I took your advice, Tom. I immediately texted him, and he gave me different ways to actually see what's going on.
What time did that happen?
10:19
10 in the morning.
a.m.
Yeah. And it got here maybe
I was
an
on
hour
my
after
run.
that.
I was
Right.
on my run. And
I didn't feel it at all. Here on this,
No, it happened at 9:19.
yeah, and
it got
an
here
hour
at
later.
10:19. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's what I was kind of wondering what time. Anyway,
I think if you're on solid bedrock, you probably could have felt it a lot
Yeah.
better than us over here, where we're on alluvium from the creek. So,
oh wow.
but anyway, we got to experience an actual earthquake here in Alpine.
And you could go find that one on this program.
I don't know if it's updated.
How often does it get updated?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It might be updated. It might not. But
It's something to look for. You
yeah,
can go.
yeah.
You can kind of look around for activity around here. Maybe it's already up there.
Tom showed me the USGS website,
Yeah.
and it shows you everything
I
in real
wouldn't doubt
time,
it.
where it goes,
Yeah,
like how far it expands and
Wow.
everything. It's really cool.
yeah, if you really want to get specific, you can go to the USGS website, and it will show you up to the previous minute what's
Yeah.
going on. And the cool thing about that, what Conley was mentioning with the earthquake that happened here recently, you could see the seismic waves, the margin of the earthquake as it traveled away from the epicenter. And it actually gave us the moment magnitude of the earthquake here in Alpine. It was like a 1.8.
Yeah.
So
Barely
just
even feeling
barely
it.
like a thunder.
I
strike.
see. That's what. Okay, because a 5 is pretty. It's
Yeah,
not,
if
if
you were
if you
jogging-
were over the epicenter, you'd feel a 5.
Yeah, they felt
Yeah.
it there, and they felt it in El Paso too.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. Oh.
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
on the east side of El Paso. So going back to the project that you're going to do, So the first thing you're going to notice are earthquakes and volcanoes are clustered. So the first question is why? Why are they all clustered in the same places? And it has to do with plate tectonics. So what you want to explain to your kid that you're teaching this to is, when plates interact, when they come together, they collide, they generate seismic energy. Okay, there's friction that's generated as two plates are colliding and interacting with each other. But also, as a plate subducts, as it sinks beneath another plate, it generates magma beneath the surface that rises up and forms volcanoes. So that's why we have the Pacific Ring of Fire. The Pacific Plate is interacting with all of these smaller plates, including the North American Plate. Mount St. Helens, for example, is a result of this interaction. All the volcanoes on the Aleutian Islands in Alaska are a result of this interaction. All the way down to Indonesia, it's the same thing. The Philippine Plate is interacting with the Pacific Plate. So you start to recognize patterns, and this is something we talk about just about in every discipline of science, in biology, geology, physics, what have you, is recognizing patterns and finding some significance. Okay, so first, your student needs to recognize these patterns. Second, they need to relate them to something, which in this case is plate tectonics. Now, to take it a step further, depending on how old your kid is, you can look into some resources, and I might post some stuff on our Facebook page for you, and explain to them what plate tectonics is. We've had a full episode on this.
Yeah, full.
Maybe
Look
we
back
can
in the archive.
Yeah, episode 20 or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe we can post it on YouTube for people to watch. But the plates, the surface of the Earth is constantly moving, and the plates are interacting, and that's what drives the geologic activity that we have at the surface, like volcanoes and earthquakes. Now, one of the really cool things about dynamic Earth, just on these two simple layer files, is each one of those icons, those symbols that pops up for volcanoes and earthquakes, has data. So you can click on them, and it will tell you the last time the volcano erupted,
Wow.
what the name of the volcano is, what its coordinates are. Some of them even have like a paragraph or two describing the volcano, the history of the volcano.
How far back?
These go back maybe 20 or 30 years.
Okay, wow,
So,
cool.
yeah.
So St. Helens is on there.
St. Helens
Sure.
is on there. Yellowstone caldera is
Oh,
on
yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually a special layer file for Yellowstone that shows its historical positions.
Oh wow, I got to see that.
Which is
Oh,
another
that's
cool
cool,
thing
yeah.
that you can do, and maybe we'll talk about that in the future.
So you could almost do it. You could do it like you could kill a whole afternoon doing like a tour of the Ring of Fire, starting wherever you want and tracing the entire ring.
That's right.
Yeah.
Every time you stop at a volcano, pull up Wikipedia, right? Put the name of it
Yeah.
in and see and read about the history of that volcano. You'll get the earthquakes and go, oh, there's a magnitude 8.
Yeah,
that probably
exactly.
left a dent. So we should see what that was like.
Yeah.
You could kill a whole afternoon doing
And
this.
I've done this with my intro to geology students in the past, where I assign them this project where they have to choose a volcano or an earthquake, whatever it might be, and they do research. So if you have a high school student, for example, someone who should be learning how to do research, please, especially if they're going to be taking a class with me at Sol Ross, they should know how to do basic research.
That terrifying test. You're gonna terrify them with your tests, man.
Yeah. So
Your exams.
that might be something fun to do with your high school student. Tell them, okay, choose a volcano, click on it. You'll get some basic resources, and then hunt down some information and do some research on it. But the cool thing is it's all related to plate tectonics, and this free resource that we have with Google Earth actually gives us some good information. Now, beyond that, what you can do, and you'll find as you play around with Google Earth, you might find yourself kind of ignoring your kids and actually playing around with it yourself.
Sure.
Is it also has topographic and bathymetric data. This is something when Google Earth first came out, it didn't have at all. You just kind of got this two-dimensional flat satellite imagery of the Earth. But what you can do now is it's all projected onto a three-dimensional model, so that you can see the topography and the bathymetry below
Wow.
the surface of the ocean, and you can see what the surface is doing.
Yeah, that's right.
You could
Wow.
see seamounts and things like
You
that
can see
under the
through
ocean.
the ocean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see oceanic trenches.
Wow.
So we can take this idea of plate tectonics and project it into a three-dimensional model, and you can actually see where the oceanic plate is subducting beneath the continental plate
And
in
I see.
a topographic profile.
Wow.
And you can traverse across the Hawaiian Islands, and you can see how they're just emerging out from the seafloor. And you can do this across the continent too. If you go out to Big Bend, you can draw a line completely across Big Bend National Park and see how the elevation changes. And you can see the two fault blocks on either side. You can see the Chizos Mountains in the middle. And you can do it. It's all free. It's a free resource.
The way that it is now, you can set it in a certain way to where you can actually kind of look like you're flying across the surface of the Earth
Yeah,
as
I've
you're
used
going, and
that.
that's really neat.
Well, I always tell my students when I have activities, and I do quite a few activities with Google Earth in my classes. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you this because you're going to end up finding this yourself. But after you've finished your homework, after you've finished your research project, I'm going to give you a hint. There's a flight simulator in Google Earth. So maybe not tell your kids this right away, but when they're done with their project, because there's a three-dimensional surface model of the Earth, you can come in at an oblique angle and you can enter a F-150
Oh, sweet.
and fly it across the surface of the Earth.
That is awesome.
Yeah, even down in Big Bend, all the mountains are in three-dimensional models. There's even some major cities where they have buildings that are rendered in three-dimensional models.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That must have been
guys,
so difficult to
It was a
program.
great show. I got to head out. I'm going to go home and check this out. So
Go look at some volcanoes.
I'm taking off.
Nah, he's not. We're going to keep you here, man. All right. Well, we have about 5 minutes before our next break. Anirban, what you got for us? Let's kick it off, and then we'll pick it up after the break. How's that?
So I thought I would be greedy and talk about two projects and not one, like other two did. So
Not naming names,
I
but
know,
two other people.
two other people did. So, I mean, I really don't want to put the focus on them. Okay, so this is something we talked about when we talked about how are we dealing with, what are we doing, how are dealing with this lockdown, or like rather teach from home thing as professors and stuff. So I kind of briefly mentioned of doing contributing to actual science from your home. This is meant for, like, I would say high school students rather, so you can actually contribute to ongoing research in astronomy from your home. So this is something you can do and help the science community. So one of them is pretty cool. It's called Project Planet 4. So you can just Google and type in, like, saying Planet 4 citizen science projects. So what you get to do is you get to explore the surface and the weather of Mars, southern polar region. So basically South Pole of Mars, you get to explore that. And and these are basically people where you help different features that are going to appear on Martian surfaces. So you track certain things called fans and blotches. So that's what they're called. Fans and blotches. They appear on surface of Mars.
Pants?
What?
Pants?
Not pants. Fans. F-A-
Fans.
Yeah, fans.
Fans.
F-A-
Fans and blotches.
Yeah, fans and blotches.
Okay.
So what they are
Not pants and crotches.
No, that's not what we're looking for here. So
Okay.
no, what they do is these are basically
Don't Google that.
features which are dependent on wind direction and speed. So it's like in geology, this is also related to geology, and it's like a sand dune, if you want to visualize that, which kind of depends a little bit on how the wind is blowing and what's the speed of the wind that is blowing. So what it does, it gives us an idea how the wind is blowing on Mars, and it gives us an idea then what is Mars's climate. So
are these like videos that have been taken?
no, these are pictures, basically.
Still photos.
Still photos,
And you go in there and count something or something
Yeah,
like
you
that
just
because there's so
basically
much information.
Yeah, you basically compare the pictures from years to year, 1 year to another, or like days to month, because we have a satellite which is going around Mars taking pictures of different areas of Mars. So it's just looking at the surface and watching how the surface is changing. So Yeah, so this is something a high school kid can do, and parents can do too. Get together as like a fun family activity, like a puzzle, like comparing two pictures and seeing how it changes. So it's pretty cool, and you also get to learn about how the climate on Mars. Learn more about the climate on Mars and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool, I think. So
Yeah, because the way the prevailing winds, it's incredible that Mars has these dunes
mhm.
that are very similar to dunes on Earth. And
Yes,
they form kind of the same. The prevailing winds kind of determine what kind of dunes you get. And you're telling me that they've got so many pictures of these things that they need people to help
yeah, one of them,
to
yes,
figure out the
yes, yeah,
direction.
and
How cool.
one of those things that the fans that I talked about is I did say about dunes, and but I need to be more specific. These dunes are typically not uh, made out of like sand particles, but rather made out of like dry ice, which is like solid carbon dioxide. So that's what this is made out of. And so what is happening, this sublimation is happening. So basically the solid is becoming into gas and is being trapped inside. So, and slowly as the sunlight hits it, the gas gets released like a geyser, and then the material from the top erupts and it kind of erodes out, and that's like blown downwind of the
But
planet.
they're still sand-sized particles that behave
Yes.
mechanically the same way that
Yes.
sand on Earth
Loose
would.
materials, yeah. So that's the closest thing I can talk about.
Yeah, and you could use Google Earth. Sorry to interrupt here, but
Yeah.
if you go to one of the big deserts on Earth, like the Sahara or something, you can see these dunes and the different shapes that they generate based on prevailing wind directions and the amount of sand that's available. So that's really cool.
Yeah, so this is you're doing not on Earth but on Mars. So
How cool. I love it. Hey, when we come back after the break, give us your second activity because I really like that one. I want to do it. We're going to be right back, everybody. Stick around.
okay, so I was talking about the project with first project that you can go and search for Planet 4, and on this website called Zoo Inverse or Zooverse, but just type for Planet 4 Citizen Science. That should take you there. And I'll put links up. We will put links up there on our Facebook page, so you should not have any problems finding that. The second project I want to talk about is like, even though we are told to sit inside our home, it's kind of stepping outside and just taking pictures. So we take pictures of our sun every day at a certain time, and the time and where you take pictures of the sun has to be the same. You have to take the pictures from the same place, and you have to also take it at the same time. So, and preferably this is something you do it over a period of month or two. And if you can continue this project over a year, that's really cool. So what you want is
Let's hope we don't have to continue
No.
it over a year, but
Yeah.
we got you covered for 2 months, I think.
I think so.
yeah. So 2 months, yeah. So at least like 2 to 3 months. This is like a great thing. What this will show you. So I would suggest something around like 3 p.m. So what this will show you that the position of the sun in the sky changes with throughout the year. So basically, if you start now, sun, let's say you start at 3 p.m., the sun is going to appear closer to the horizon, like to your ground level, compared to if you are taking this picture somewhere close in June. Sun is going to be higher up in the sky at 3 p.m. So, which tells us that the sun gets much more higher up in the sky during summer compared to winter, which again is which a great idea to understand why summers are warmer than winter. Because think about a torch, and if you focus the like if you really take a torch or a flashlight. Sorry, I forgot. I'm not in America. I'm talking. So it's a flashlight that we're talking about here. So You take a flashlight and you really hold it on top, you get a really concentrated beam of light. But you take the same flashlight and you kind of incline it, the flashlight spreads out and it's not very intensely focused. So this is something you can do, and this will give you an idea how seasons are changed, basically, due to the position of the sun, how high the sun reaches up in the sky. And that is something, a pretty cool science project that you can do. Uh, 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 it's great if you can do it throughout the year and you can see the entire sun, uh, position of the sun changing and coming back to its original position.
So, Anirban, how do people do this kind of practically? You talking, take your camera out there?
Basically, that's what's coming to. Just take your camera out there, point it towards the sun, very quickly take a picture. That's it. And don't look at the sun. And
but don't you need something? Wouldn't you need something in the foreground as a reference? You wouldn't just take a picture of the sun.
Yeah, with something in the background. That is exactly why I said 3 p.m. so that the sun is actually closer 3 or 4 p.m. when the sun is much I'm saying is closer to the ground, and you would be able.
Yeah.
So you want kind of a wide angle shot, maybe so that you can see the horizon or maybe see the fence posts in your backyard.
Yeah, you need a tree in the foreground or something,
or
so you
like
can
an
see how it changes.
or like a street lamp or something like that in the foreground, so to give you an idea of where the sun is up in the sky. Something like that.
And you want to try to frame it. Every picture should be framed exactly the same.
Yeah.
If you could
To
set
what's
up,
in the foreground.
Yeah, exactly. So you want, like, if you could set up a tripod and just leave it out there, that would be perfect. You just attach it to the tripod. You know it's going to be about the same place every single time. But if you don't have a tripod, then you want to try to keep the framing as close as possible to the first picture you took. Yeah. And then it'll be like a time lapse. It'll be like a little movie if you were to do this every day for 3 to 4 months, for example.
So if you did it for 3 to 4 months, you'd have like a 3-second movie.
Yeah.
If even that.
Yeah. And you could do this with other celestial bodies too,
Absolutely.
right? You could do this with stars and planets. And
you can do this. You can do this with planets. You can do this with constellations, and you can just. Yeah, basically, this is telling us how the Earth is moving around the sun, and this is those constellations, and this specifically tells us how the sun's position, how the seasons change, and that is what the sun's position in the sky is related to how seasons are, and not. So yeah,
I think something that's cool that people can consider too as they're doing this, to relate this to kind of the history of science, is to simply recognize that astronomers were doing this hundreds of years ago without the kind of technology that we have today. Simply observing celestial bodies and tracking their positions over time, they were really able to determine kind of the fundamental principles that we have when it comes to how the sun traverses around, or how the Earth traverses around the sun, how the Earth rotates, the position of different celestial bodies in our solar system.
And one thing since you bring it up, and thanks for bringing it up, is like we also need to figure out this position of the sun in the sky during the year is also what not just astronomers. If you go back to the start of civilization, this is what hunter-gatherers noticed, and that's how their movement would start. If the sun was higher up in the sky, they would move up north, and if it was going the sun was lower in the horizon, they would go back south because the winter was coming and things like that. And that's how civilization slowly progressed. And with agriculture coming into play, that would tell us when you would plant the crops and everything. So.
Yeah, and it would be kind of worth explaining, it's not intuitive. The way the sun moves across the sky during the year, it makes it seem like the sun is what's moving and not the Earth.
Yeah.
And so it'd be really kind of cool to explain that, the ancients and in antiquity, everybody got it wrong.
Yeah.
They saw these movements and thought totally wrong, and then it took some really smart people to kind of...
Well, they had to be very clever and think outside the box, too.
Unintuit and figure out, no, it's actually completely different than what we think. But it all matches up. Yeah. It all fits the data. It's just totally different.
I really see how this project could kind of be brought together with history and other disciplines of science. You could talk about... You have a high school student, talk about Milankovitch cycles. You can talk about navigation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All sorts of cool stuff. So, yeah, this is a great project. So, Kind of the whole purpose, if you're just joining us for this episode,
You're
a little
really
bit
late.
You're really late, but you can access this information on Facebook, and we might air this at a later time.
Yeah, just look up Science Nights in the Morning on Facebook.
Yeah.
You'll find us. We're also on YouTube, so you can check that out.
Yeah.
You can also go to BigBenRadio.com, this station. Their website always posts updates. They post shows too whenever I send it in to them. But you can get a lot of information on there as well.
And you should know, too, that we actively check our Facebook. We really want people to comment and ask us questions. So if you're a parent out there and you have a question about any of the stuff we've covered, please feel free to send us a private message or post a comment on our Facebook page. Or if you want some more suggestions, just let us know. We're out there to help you. We're all educators, and we understand what you're going through right now, and we want to help out. So use this as a resource. We can come up with other projects. We might have future episodes where we talk about other projects. So
And feel free to call the hotline too, 432-217-1983. That's 432-217-1983. Feel free to leave a message, and we'll get your message, and we'll respond to it promptly.
yeah. But we appreciate you out there listening to us, and hopefully this was helpful for you guys. And hang in there. Keep educating your kids, and we'll catch you next Saturday, 10 a.m.